We are lucky to be today with a rabbi, a giant in our generation, Rabbi Aaron Pasin, that is going to speak and is going to share with all of us word of inspiration. באמת is enough to say שהחיינו, just to see such a level of a rabbi that coming in and my own Yom Holedet. I will definitely going to give the rabbi to speak. The rabbi came to our community a few times. Again, later on you're going to see the books of the rabbis. It's almost obligation to go to buy and to have these books in your house. You're going to see it. You're going to see the books. Come and check after that. It's almost obligation for your own soul and body. One of the books, and everybody like, the Divrei Torah is giant, but everybody love when you're talking about money, how to become rich. One of the books is 100 or 106 advice how to become rich. That book is going to be most likely in America bestseller. In Bnei Brak, the Divrei Torah is going to be bestseller. But in America, Emet Rabbi Aaron, Emet, your dad Tzaddik, no, Baruch Hashem. In America, that book, and what's beautiful with the book, they have half a side Hebrew, half a side English, and it's very short to the point. Unreal, Baruch Hashem. So, Bereshut, Kvod Harav, Agaon, Rabbi Aaron Pasin, באמת, I want the rabbi to speak. I will tell you this one. They have a big debate, and the rabbi can tell you, the rabbi knows the whole shas, the whole poskim. You don't understand what באמת, everything, I can see, when I read these books, I'm always excited, because true definition of Talmid Chacham.
It's a tremendous pleasure, it's an honor, not only to be back here, but to wish Rabbi Vaknin Mazal Tov. Rabbi Vaknin, you should be zocheh, im Yirtzeh Hashem, to be Mekadesh Shem Shamayim Barabim at all times. Mitzvah Hashem, you should be able to continue growing along with your beautiful community, ascending higher and higher, closer to Hashem. You should have a true and everlasting Shlom Bayit. You should have tremendous Nachat of Gedusha from all your offspring. And in Mitzvah Hashem, together, soon, we will be holding hands, dancing in front of Beit HaMikdash with Mashiach Tzidkenu. I'm just speaking on your behalf. It's a blessing that comes from all our hearts collectively, right? You asked for a source, none other than the Ben Ish Chai in Parashat Re'eh. Ot Yud Zayin says that it is our practice in our city of Baghdad to celebrate the birthday. It's a minhag yafeh, it's a right practice, it's a right thing to do. And we do it as a Yom Tov. We do it as a holiday. That is what the Ben Ish Chai says. Even though, as the rabbi said, many say that the only time we find a birthday in the Tanakh is the birthday of Paro. So we don't find a Jewish one. However, Masechet Berachot Daf Kaf Chet, we learn the story of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And he was appointed to become the prince of Israel at the young age of, remember from the Haggadah of Pesach? 18 years old? How is that possible? Such a prominent position when you're 18 years old. The Ben Ish Chai again in his book Ben Yehoyada in Brachot Daf Kaf Chet says, well, it's not a wonder. That was his birthday. Because it was his birthday and one's mazal is very strong on his birthday, that is why he was appointed to become the prince of the Jewish nation. The Khatam Sofer says, however, a very interesting thing. He says, what are you celebrating your birthday? You're celebrating a birthday. In essence, what you're saying is, I'm proud to be a person who's not circumcised. When you were born, you weren't circumcised. Says the Khatam Sofer, if you want to celebrate something, celebrate 8 days later when you became an mahul, a person who is circumcised. That's a fascinating chidush from the Khatam Sofer. I don't know too many people who celebrate their circumcision, but that is what the Khatam Sofer says. But even though we all bless the rabbi, really the true strength to bless today is in his hands. How do I know this? So the Hasidim explain. In Tehillim, the 2nd chapter, the 7th verse, Pasuk Zayin, ends with saying, Hashem said, Amar Elai, Bni ata ani hayom yeliditecha. You are my son, I bore you today. In other words, this is your birthday. The first 3 words of Pasuk Chet, right after this, say, Sh'al mimeni ve'etna. Ask of me whatever you want, and I will grant you. From here you see that there's tremendous strength in the hands of a person who's a birthday boy to give us all blessings, and whatever he requests on that day is granted. So the Rabbi did give us a lot of blessings. Hopefully they will all be fulfilled speedily. And we will all, in Mitzvah Hashem, join only in happy occasions like this, and the happiest occasion, as we said before, in Yerushalayim, speedily in our days. I want to speak about some topical events. Interesting question. When I was here last few times, I enjoyed the esteemed and prestigious body of judges that are sitting here today. If you remember, I asked you all kinds of halacha questions, presented a case, and asked you for the correct halachic approach, how to deal with it. So let's ask you a very interesting question. A terrorist is advancing towards Jerusalem. He took a knife and he stabbed a young guy. The guy's on the floor, on the ground. He's bleeding to death. There was a doctor there, a Jewish doctor, who sees this happening. And he can take care of this person who is wounded, severely wounded, and it's clear that he's going to die if he doesn't take care of him. On the other hand, this terrorist, armed with who knows what else, is advancing towards Jerusalem. Who knows how many people are going to get killed over there? He's going to explode himself in the middle of the market, in the middle of the mall. The doctor is asking us, what should I do? What is the right thing to do? To help the patient who is right here in front of us. He is going to die otherwise. Or try to run after this terrorist, get a hold of him, try to beat him, and try to stop him from going to Jerusalem. And who knows what type of catastrophe can come out if he in fact gets to Jerusalem. What is better, to take care of the wounded person who's right in front of us now, or to take care of many people who potentially will be not just wounded but killed very shortly in Jerusalem? What do you say?
I think the same way how if you have a mitzvah in front of you compared to mitzvah like in 10 minutes, you do one in front of you. So same way with the person, like you have to have faith that someone else will stop him and save the person right in front of you.
Wow, what a nice idea. Yeah?
I also say the one in front of you because this is an actual person where what hypothetically can happen in Jerusalem is like...
And what if you know that he's going to the marketplace where there's 1,500 people? Not 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1,500 people, and he's going to explode himself, commit suicide right there. Will you still say the same thing? 1,500 people? 1,500 people. What about 10,000 people in a stadium? You still go with that? Wow, you're consistent, that's good. You still hold that with 10,000 people, it's better to take care of the wounded person in front of us.
Well, I mean, I would still say that there is a potential chance for someone else to stop him, or that maybe soldiers or policemen.
And if not, you want to take the responsibility on your shoulders?
No, I mean, no.
No, so how does it work?
Can you repeat the question?
There's a wounded person in front of us right now, bleeding to death. The doctor is asking, should I take care of him? And I can, and hopefully I'll save his life. But if I don't, I have a other option. I can run after the terrorist who just stabbed him, and he is going to explode himself in the market, in the stadium, with 1,500 people in Jerusalem. Should I run after him and try to stop him, or try to help this person who's wounded right in front of us and is about to die? Is anyone wants to disagree and thinks we should go and save 10,000 people? But we don't care about 10,000 people. Save 10,000. What do you say? 10,000. So it's 2 against 4. Anyone who wants to help them?
Look at the one you saved, not the
one that's in front of you.
So that's right in front of you right now. 10,000.
Yeah, I would probably say, are you allowed to endanger yourself?
That's another question. Are you even allowed to? So let's cancel all police officers. Let's cancel all soldiers. Let's cancel all wars. Let's cancel all people who have to save others, firefighters. We have to agree that there's some kind of a degree of risk that one has to assume on himself. You see a person drowning. Are you supposed to say, well, I'm not such a great swimmer. Okay, take care there. You're supposed to jump into the water. If you don't know how to swim, well, we're going to get 2 people dead. That's not a great equation. But one should assume on himself a certain degree of risk in order to help others. But you know what? You're not helping me, so forget about 10,000. 100,000 people in the stadium. Is that enough? Still not. Wow. Anyone disagrees and thinks we should go with the big numbers? Yeah, you said that before. Anyone wants to join that strong coalition? This question went to the greatest in the generation 10 years ago, passed away, Rabbi Eliashiv. Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. And he said, what you guys said, or the majority here said, you have to take care of the patient right in front of you. But why? For 4 reasons. When we have in front of us is a person who is about to die. That is something which is called certain. You see the person who's wounded, he's bleeding, and you know if he's losing all this blood, you know what's going to happen next. That's called certainty. You have, though, on the other hand, a doubt. Doubt number 1. Who says that you're going to be able to find this guy? Terrorist is running, advancing towards Jerusalem, and who told you you'll be able to find him? Doubt number 1. Doubt number 2. Maybe you will be able to find him, but guess what? He's stronger than you. So who says that decision helped? He's going to beat you, and we lost the guy who was in front of us. Doubt number 3, as you said, maybe others will find him, and they will be able to stop him. And doubt number 4, and this happened many times, that the terrorists tried to explode themselves, and guess what?
It failed.
It failed. It didn't work. Nothing happened. So hopefully nothing will happen. But you have 4 doubts and you have a certainty. When you have a doubt and you have a certainty, what do? You go with something which is certain. And therefore, for that reason, Rabbi Eliashiv ruled on this question exactly like you guys said, and you had in mind to the great mind of Rabbi Eliashiv Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, to try and help the person who is wounded run in front of us. Now, another topical question. COVID-19. Listen to this, a question of a doctor, but it's very relevant to us in many areas. COVID-19, positive patient comes to the doctor. Doctor, what's going to be with me? Am I going to live? What's going on? Tell me exactly what's going on. I don't feel well. What's going on? The doctor checks. And the doctor calls fast the rabbi and says, Rabbi, am I allowed to lie to the patient and say, listen, it doesn't look good? And then when I say this, I know the patient will do teshuvah. He'll do some introspection, and he will accept all kinds of great things in himself, and he will change. And then a few days later, I'll say, you know what? Thank God. It's getting much better, and I think you're out of the woods, and I think it'll be okay. Is the doctor allowed to lie in order to gain the biggest thing in the world, that a person should change his ways and do teshuvah? What do you say, my friends?
No, because it's not teshuvah ba'ava. It's teshuvah in yira.
Is it better that he doesn't teshuvah at all?
It's not.
From teshuvah,
It's based on sheker.
who cares? But ultimately, you made the person change and get closer to Hashem.
Doesn't matter.
Via sheker, though. It's not through.
And who says you're not allowed to lie for a reason like this?
You could lie for shalom bayit.
That's the only reason?
Yeah, that's the only.
You lie-
That's the
you
only
lie
kind of
for-
lie.
Who told you? Who told you? You're sending us to Masechet Yevamot, page 65b, where we learn that one is allowed to change from the truth, not to lie. To change from the truth, we learn it from Hashem Himself, in order to create peace in the home between Avraham and Sarah. But there are many, many other cases that one is allowed to lie. We have many, many topics that are discussed about this in the Talmud, in the Gemara. Many. For example, for Tzniut, Masechet Baba Metzia, page 23, we learn that a Talmid Chacham is allowed to change from the truth in 3 areas. If they ask him, tell me, do you know Masechet Menachot? Menachot. He learned it 101 times. He's allowed to say, no, I don't know it. Why is he doing this? So people don't look at him, wow, he knows Menachot by heart. You're allowed to change from a truth for humility.
Yeah, but what if they need help?
They're asking him because they want to be impressed, and he wants to be humble. He doesn't want to be known as that giant genius. He's allowed to change from the truth. And there are other 2 areas as well. One is allowed to change from the truth in order to prevent extortion. We have sugyot like that in Shas and Masechet Sanhedrin, and there are many, many. I think I can count 30 different cases in the Gemara that we see that one is allowed to change from the truth. Interesting case. For example, one is running away from jail. He's running on the river and he gets to the riverbank. And he has to cross, but he can't. So there's a boat that takes you to the other side. The boat charges $5. So the guy says to him, listen, can you take me to the other side? He says, well, I'm sorry. I'm on my lunch break. It's 2 o'clock. Come back in an hour. He says, no, I got to go right now. He says, well, but I'm on my lunch break. How much do you want? And he says, $10,000. $10,000? Fine. And he jumps into the boat. He gets to the other side. Does he have to pay him $10,000? Says the Gemara, no. But he said, but you told me you'll pay. Yeah, I fooled you. Why are you trying to take $10,000 for something which is worth exactly $5? To prevent extortion, one is allowed to do this. To save himself, one is allowed to do this. Many, many other examples for that. So if it was only because he is lying, I'm not so sure that we would say no. If we know the end result is that we get him closer to Hashem, maybe it would be a good idea.
First of all, you doubt. How do you know if it's going to Teshuvah?
I know the guy. I know the guy. I have a history with him. He's my neighbor.
Doesn't matter. If you still don't know, people.
What do I have to lose? So he'll say a few more chapters of Tehillim.
You lose the guy. If the guy loses the hope, he could die. If the guy loses the hope, he could die. So it's a matter of Gak Nefesh. You can never.
Beautiful. Beautiful. But if he really is not severely sick, even if he loses all hope, he's not going to die. Imagine, tomorrow morning you get up in the morning, you have a little sore throat. And I'm going to say, oh, well, that's it. Okay. But tomorrow, in 2 days from now, you'll be 100%, even though you lost all hope. Because if the doctor ascertains that his situation is not really severe, who cares? All I can do is I can gain. He can say a few more chapters of Tehillim, he's going to give more tzedakah, he's going to learn more Torah, he's going to do some introspection and say, Hashem, I want to change my ways, I want to become close to you. What do you have to lose?
You say, but it's not. When this is serious, the sore throat, so you can't.
I like that idea, if in fact he is very severely ill. Great,
yes.
Great. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking, what if you were to find out the truth? That let's say you went to a second opinion,
Right.
and the doctor says
That wouldn't look so good. Wouldn't look so good.
I'm never going to read the hill. I'm never going to keep.
And I'm definitely never going to this doctor again.
That should be the list of his words.
That's true, but let's say you're in a village where he's the only doctor, he's not going for a second opinion.
I would still say you can't lie.
Why?
There's not a guarantee. I'm not guaranteed that he's going to be teshuva.
You guys are saying brilliant things, beautiful things, but do you have a source? I need a source. In a Beit Din, we make halachic rulings based on sources. How can we make a decision, such an important decision?
There's a possibility that by saying to a person who is so not well, that he is not well at all, that the person who speaks will commit murder.
So that's what your friend said. He will lose all hope, and just that will deteriorate his condition.
And it happens.
Right.
It happens in hospitals.
So maybe we have a source. I'm not telling you yet if we're allowed to do it or not. Some kind of a source. On Rosh Hashanah, we read in the Haftarah the story of Chana and Pnina. Chana is the mother of Shmuel HaNavi. What's the name of her husband? Elkanah. Elkanah was married to Pnina and to Chana. Chana doesn't have kids. You know for how long? 19 years. Pnina has a lot of kids. She has 10 kids. And every morning, Pnina would come to Chana and say, so, you doing carpool today? Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot you don't have kids. In the afternoon, Pnina would say to Chana, so how was the report card? Kids came back from school today. Oh, so sorry, I totally forgot, you don't have kids. And she would do this to her day in, day out. Why? Our sages say she didn't do it in spite to make her angry. She did it because she wanted Chana to daven with more kavanah. And in fact, it will work and Hashem will give her kids. This was L'Shem Shamayim. And yet, even though her intention were good, we find that she was punished. How severely was she punished? Her kids died. Terrible punishment. So you see, even though she did it for the right sake, like our doctor is asking, I want to do it for the right sake. I want him to get closer to Hashem. However, she was punished severely. Why? Because she caused anguish. She caused sorrow. She caused pain to another Jew. Hashem doesn't like that. But if that's the case, we have to challenge this source with another source. One of the greatest halachic authorities, called the Shvut Yaakov, about 400 years ago, says that if the Dayanim, the judges in Beit Din, ruled, they got to a decision and they ruled, but they feel that they will say their ruling to the person in front of them, people will start saying, well, wait a second, how is this possible? So fast? This case just started this morning or yesterday. How is this possible? If they're afraid this is going to cause bad mouthing of the Beit Din, of the judges, they're allowed to withhold their ruling and not to share it for a day, 2 days, for a week, whatever they feel that is necessary. So here we say that you're allowed as if to change from the truth. And did you reach a decision? No, we're still working on it. Why are you allowed to do this? If we're saying you're not allowed to cause any pain, you're not allowed to cause any sorrow to any Jew, so why was Pnina punished? And we're saying to the judges, go ahead, do it. What's the difference between them? The chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Vaknin, just mentioned Rabbi Shmuel Salant, the one who, you know what, this is an important message. Whenever I mentioned the name of this chief rabbi of Jerusalem, who was right after Rabbi Shmuel Salant, I tell him an amazing story about him. Rabbi Shmuel Salant was 93 years old, and he felt he doesn't have the strength needed to continue being the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. So he asked that they should bring Rabbi Eliyahu David Rabinovich Teomim from Europe. He was the chief rabbi of the city of Mir and of Ponovich, great, important cities in Europe at that time. And they came to him and they said, we want you to be the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. And he agreed. He was young. He was only 62 years old at the time. He came to Jerusalem, and by the way, he ultimately wrote 120 books. Only 2 were printed in his time, but we have the manuscripts of the others, and they're printing it now. He was brilliant. And we have in our possessions today a letter that he wrote when he was the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. He's writing a letter back to his family in Europe. And he says, you know, they think they did me a big favor. They rented for me an apartment overlooking the Beit HaMikdash. And they don't know that they're shortening my life. Because every day when I go to the window and I move the curtain and I look at Makom HaMikdash and its destruction, it breaks my heart. And they don't know they're shortening my life. And he prophesies, and he didn't know what he prophesies because he only lasted in Jerusalem for 2 years. And Rabbi Shmuel Salant, who invited him to be the chief rabbi instead of him, was still around, and he eulogized him. So he deals exactly with our question. What is the difference between Pnina and Chana? Pnina was punished for causing pain to Chana, even though it was L'Shem Shamayim, for the right sake. And the judges are allowed to withhold their ruling, even though we know it's going to cause tremendous pain to the person who just wants to know, what's the verdict? And he explains in 2 ways. It's true that Pnina was punished, but you know why? Because she did it repeatedly. She did it in the morning, she did it in the afternoon, she did it every single day. The judges are going to do it only once, not in order to get someone upset. Pnina did it in order to get her upset, hoping that she will change because of that, or that she will get closer to Hashem because of that. Great. But she did it in order to get her upset. The judges are not doing it for that reason. The judges are doing it in order to prevent the person from bad-mouthing the judges. That's a totally different case, different reason, and therefore they are allowed. The other reason that the Aderet, his name is Rabbi Eliyahu David Rabinovich Teomim, explains, Pnina was actively doing something. She got up every morning and says, so Chana, so what about this, what about that? She was actively causing her pain. The judges are not going to actively do something. They're going to be passive by not sharing the ruling that they reach. So we see from here how important it is never to cause any Jew any pain, any sorrow. But I want to show you the reverse now with an unbelievable sensitivity that we'll see from a most beautiful, beautiful story. After the Second World War, after the Holocaust, the Grand Rebbe of the Chassidut called Bobov, you know Bobov in Borough Park, he came to the States. And one day he's going to shul. Imagine, it's after the Holocaust, everything, the old Jewish, European Jews, destroyed. He's going to shul one day, going to the synagogue, and he sees this guy who looks very unkempt. He's just sitting down there. And he says to him, would you like to come to shul with me? No. Would you like to put on the tefillin? No, thank you, Rabbi. Would you like to be the chazan in our synagogue? Chazan? Oh, I like that. Yes, I'd like to. Come with me to the synagogue. They came to the synagogue, and in fact, he was the chazan. The following week, it was Shabbat. And the Baba Rebbe, along with his son Naftali, are walking to the synagogue. And they see this guy, but this time, he's sitting right at the entrance to the synagogue, smoking a cigarette on Shabbat. The rabbi comes to him and says to him, would you like to be the chazan again in our synagogue? Oh, chazan, yeah, I'd like that. Can I come in? Sure. And he came in. Naftali, the son of the rabbi, looks at his father and he says, Dad, what are you doing? Are you allowed to give someone who smokes a cigarette in public, somebody who violates Shabbos publicly, to be a chazan? You're not allowed to. Why are you letting him be the chazan in our shul? And his father looks at him and says, why do you say that he's violating Shabbat publicly? So what do you mean, why? He's smoking a cigarette at the entrance of the shul in front of everyone. He says, that's not true. So what do you mean it's not true? Didn't you see him? And his father says to him, you're wrong. He's not smoking a cigarette. You know who's smoking a cigarette? It's Hitler, Yamach Shema, that's smoking the cigarette. It's the Nazim, Yamach Shemam, that's smoking the cigarette. It's not him that's smoking the cigarette. Fast forward 50 years. After 50 years, a man dressed like a real Hasid, with the shtaimel and everything, comes over to the great Baba for Rebbe. He was still around. And he says to him, Rebbe, I'm marrying off my grandson. Could you come to the wedding? And he says, what day is the wedding? I'm sorry, I can't, but when is the Sheva Brachot? I'll come to the Sheva Brachot. He came to the Sheva Brachot, and when he walks into the hall, he sees 100 little cute Hasidic kids with their long peot. And this man says to him, Rabbi, you probably don't remember me. But 50 years ago, one comment that you said, it's not him smoking, it's Hitler who's smoking. That brought me back. You gave me chizuk. You should know, Rabbi, all these children are not mine. They're not my grandchildren. These are your children. You made them. One good word to a Jew. I'm not talking about causing sorrow or pain to a Jew. Now we went totally the other direction. Give another example of that. Another Hasidic master, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, living with us today. This, I think, is 3.5 years ago. One of his Hasidim is marrying off his son. It's his 6th kid, the last kid, leaving the house. And the rabbi goes over to the chuppah. And he says to the father, can I ask you for a personal favor? Well, the grand Rebbe of a Hasidut asks you for a favor. Whatever it is, you say yes. What can I do for you, Rabbi? And he says, do me a favor. When you get home after the end of the wedding, call me. Give you my personal number. He says, but Rabbi, it could be 3 o'clock in the morning. It could be 4 a.m. I know. Give me a call. Whatever the rabbi says. The rabbi stayed for the chuppah, and then he left. At 3:30 in the morning, this fellow came back home after the wedding. The rabbi told him to call. What can you do? He picks up the phone, he dials. And the rabbi's gabbai picks up the phone, he says, yeah, who's this calling at 3:30 a.m.? He says, well, the rabbi came to the chuppah, if you remember, he told me to call him. Oh yeah, I remember, I'll wake him up. He told me to wake him up. He wakes up the rabbi, he washes his hands, he runs to the phone. And he asks him, so, how was the wedding? He said, oh, it was lovely, it was beautiful, beautiful. How was the food? Food was wonderful, Rabbi. How was the band? Did you like the music? He says, oh, it's great. How were the flowers? Flowers were gorgeous. Tell me, the schnitzel and the chicken, when it came to the tables, was it still hot? And he's asking him all kinds of interesting questions. And the gabbai looks and says, this is unbelievable. In a rabbi's time, this is infinity. More than 15 seconds on the phone, never happens. And he's going on and on, 18 minutes at 3:30 a.m. Unheard of. The strangest questions. When he hangs up, he couldn't stop himself. He had to ask him. He says, Rabbi, I must ask you, what was that all about? And the rabbi says to him, what do you mean? Don't you know this man lost his wife half a year ago? And you know how it is when you come back home after a wedding, husband and wife sit down. So, how was the schnitzel? Was it still hot when it came to your side? Did all your friends show up? Did all my friends on the women's section show up? How was the band? Did you like the music? How were the flowers? And you talk all about the experience. Now this is his sixth kid, the last kid. He is coming back home to empty four walls. Can you imagine how he's going to feel? So I decided I am going to be his wife for the next 18 minutes so he can shmooze, so he can talk all about the experience of the wedding. That's what it is to feel somebody else's needs. You don't have to wait until someone asks, can you help me? You think ahead of time, how can I be of help? In fact, the Navi says, what does Hashem demand of you? Ahavat chesed. It doesn't say to do chesed. It says to love chesed. What's the difference between them? When you're commanded to do chesed, you do it. Check mark. Been there, done that. But when you're commanded to love chesed, you look for opportunities. How can I help? What will this person need? Oh, there's going to be a wedding today. No, his wife is gone. No more kids. How can I be of help? If we walk in this, with this thought throughout, whenever we meet people, then maybe we will be like Rabbi Vaknin. He doesn't hear me now, so I can speak about him. You know, he's 48, like he said, is moach, but 48 is also chum, warmth, and that's what he's all about. What warmth he generates. It's just a pleasure to be around him. So he uses his moach together with his warmth, and that's just a beautiful cocktail. My friends, I want to tell you a story. You should know what a giant you have here, Rabbi Vaknin. Which reminds me, I live in Israel. I just came yesterday, and my Rebbe is the greatest person in our generation, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky. I want to share with you a story that just recently unfolded. This story starts more than 21 years ago. My next door neighbor, so I'm not telling you a story that I heard somewhere, that I read. My next door neighbor's name is Itzik Khuri, and he asked me to use his name when I tell the story about him. Itzik Khuri got married and no children. A year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. He tried all the segulot in the world. Can't imagine. He wrote to all the rabbis, dead and alive. 18 years, 19 years, 20 years. A year and a half ago, he went to Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky. What do I do? Imagine, 20 years. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says to him, you should open up a mikveh where there is no mikveh. Itzik Khuri doesn't have too much money. And he said yes. He started raising money. He doesn't know any English, so some people went on his behalf to the States here, and they raised money. And within a very short few months, he was able to raise all the money necessary. I think, if I remember correctly, it was 750,000 shekels. And they built a mikveh. And in the month of Tammuz, they actually asked me to come there and to speak. They inaugurated the beautiful new mikveh in a small place called Zohar, about 40 minutes from where I live in Bet Shemesh. That day, his wife became pregnant. That night. 9 months later, a baby boy, a daughter, Rivka, a girl. But this is the first round. Itzik Khuri has a brother. His name is Neri. And Neri is married 13 years, no children. So when Neri heard that Itzik went to Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, and Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky said, open up a mikveh, he said, well, maybe I should go as well. So a month after his brother went, he went. And he goes inside, and he says, Rabbi, married 13 years, no children. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says to him, you should be strict with maaser. What's maaser?
tenth.
A tenth. So he says to Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, Maaser? Every shekel that comes in, I write it down. I'm very, very strict with it. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says to him, not Maaser Ksafim, not tithing your money. Maaser Perot, fruits and vegetables. He says to him, but I'm very strict with that as well. But Rabbi Chaim repeats, Maaser. So he says to him, my brother was here just a month ago. He told the mikveh, maybe you want me to open up a mikveh as well. He said, no, Maaser. Okay. He goes back to the store that he normally buys his fruits and vegetables, where he assumed that they are very strict with tithing. Apparently they're not. So he switched stores and he became very strict with this. And 3 weeks later, his wife became pregnant. Itzik Huri had a daughter whose name is Rivka. And a month later, his brother Neri had a boy. Unbelievable. But what's amazing? After this happened, Itzik Huri, they called him from all radio channels in Israel and TV channels, and he was all over the place. And when he was getting ready for the interview, he came upstairs to me, and we talked a little. And he told me an amazing thing. He told me, you should know. My brother Neri, before he got married, 14 years ago, lived by me for half a year. And he kept telling me, Itzik, after I'm going to get married, you should have kids first, then me. It's only right. You're older than me, and you're already married for 8 years. It's not right. You should have kids first, and then me. And Itzik told him, don't say this, don't say this. What are you opening your mouth? Don't say this, don't say it. And he says, no, but it's only right. You're older than me. You're married longer. You should have first and only then me. So guess what? He had to wait 13 years because he opened his mouth. How careful we have to be with the words that come out of our mouth. Al tiftach pela satan, Chazal say in Brachot Daf Yutet. We have to be careful. Right after he told me this, a few days later, a lady who was 80 years old told me the following story. This is shortly after, a few days later, when I'm still wowed from that story. She tells me when 5 years before that, 5 years ago, she went with her husband to a lawyer to write a will. And the lawyer, apparently not the sharpest knife in the drawer, asks them a very unintelligent question. And he says to him, so, tell me, how long do you think you still have here? What kind of a question is that? And her husband said, max 5 years. She thought he's joking, so she didn't say anything. Guess what? 5 years. 3 weeks before his 85th birthday, he was taken upstairs. How careful we have to be. Hashem gave us a gift. It's called a Jewish, holy, sacred mouth. We can sanctify it with words of Kedusha, words of Tahara, words of Torah, words of blessings, blessing Hashem and blessing His nation. How careful we have to be to make sure we do not contaminate that beautiful holy mouth with words of Lashon Hara, Sheker, changing from the truth, Chalila, opening our mouth to Ayin Hara, to say the wrong things to the wrong people, to cause any pain, any discomfort, any anguish, any sorrow to any Jew. In this parasha that we're going to read on Shabbat, we read about the first of the 10 tests, huge tests of Avraham Avinu. And the first one is the first few words of the parasha. Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetcha u'mibeit avicha. I want you to leave. I want you to leave everything behind. Go to Israel. This is the first of the tests. What is the 10th test? Anyone knows?
Like the binding of his son.
The binding of his son Yitzchak, Akedat Yitzchak. That's the ultimate test. But what's the connection? Is there a connection between the first and the 10th test? And our sages explain a beautiful thing. What is the essence of the first test? Lech lecha, go away from everything that you're familiar with. In essence, leave your past behind. Are you willing to do this for Hashem? Leave your friends, leave your career, leave everything behind. Go to an unknown place. Do it as a mesirut nefesh, sacrifice for Hashem. What is the essence of the 10th and last test? Are you willing to sacrifice your future for Hashem? Because Yitzchak, that you're supposed to put on the altar and sacrifice him, he is the one who's supposed to be your continuation. Hashem himself promised you. But now there's plan B, change of plan. So the connection between the two is, are you willing to forego your past and future for Hashem? And Avraham Avinu shows us the way. Yes, all out, 100%, at all times, day in, day out, Mesirut Nefesh for Hashem. I think you guys are lucky that you have a living example of that by Rabbi Vakman. I'll speak widely, I don't know if you can hear us. A person who's dedicated. He told us before, he could have chose to become a businessman in many different areas. But instead he chooses, I want to be committed to Hashem. I want to publicize His Torah because it's the best product out there. Let go of your past. Be willing to separate from your future only for the sake of Hashem. But during this first test, leaving everything behind, for some reason in the Torah Hashem decides to tell us, how old exactly was Avram when this took place? How old was he? Yeah?
99.
No. No. I'm not talking when he had a kid. I'm not talking when he circumcised himself. When he's leaving. 75. Tell me. Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't tell me his shoe size. What exactly the size of the suit that he was wearing? Who cares? Why did the Torah say, by the way, he was 75? Why do I need to know this? So many times throughout our life, we keep asking, but why? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? That's a question on the past. We also many times love to ask, Ma'iyeh, what's going to be? Did you hear what happened? Ma'iyeh, what's going to be? How do you say why in Hebrew? Lama. How do you say what's going to be in Hebrew? Ma'iyeh. What's the numerical value of lama? Why? Lamed is 30. Mem is 40. Hey is 5. 30 plus 40 plus 5?
75.
75. Ma'iyeh. What's going to be? Ma is 40. Mem. Hey is 5. That's 45. Yihiyeh is 30. 45 plus 30?
75.
Interesting. Lama in 75 is the same gematria, same numerical value. And how old was Avram?
75.
What? What's going on here? Because 75 is also the numerical value of the word bitachon.
Wow.
Hashem is telling us, you know how he's traveling from Haran to Eretz Israel, to Israel? With his 75 representing bitachon. That's what you take with you in order to be willing to separate from the past, in order to forego the future for the sake of Hashem. Only one thing. 75. I'm taking with me my 75, not 75 years. Who cares about these years? Who cares about how old he was? I'm taking with me bitachon. Because when one has bitachon, he doesn't need to constantly ask, why? Ma'iyeh. Who asks this? A person who doesn't have bitachon has to ask, what's going to be? What's going to be? You know what's going to be. You're in the hands of Hashem. What are you worried about? When you live with that feeling, I'm in the hands of Hashem. There are no worries. You know, you say in Hebrew, stress, pressure. What's the word for stress in Hebrew? Lachatz. Heard that name, that word, lachatz. Lachatz, lachatz, lachatz. Oh, it's under pressure. Stress, lachatz, lachatz, lachatz. Who has lachatz? A person who doesn't involve Hashem in his life. Because if you do involve Hashem, Hashem is the letter Yud, right? It's also Hey. So if you take Yud, which is two Heys, and you put in front of Lachatz and at the end of Lachatz, Hey, those letters turn around and now it becomes to Hatzlacha. The Lachatz that you felt before translates into Hatzlacha if you only let Hashem go into the picture. What is the word worry in Hebrew?
Daga.
Da'aga. How do you spell Da'aga?
Dalet. Gimel. Aleph. Hey.
So you have Aleph, Gimel, Dalet. Hey, what's missing?
Bet.
Why? Because who has Da'aga? Who has worry? One who doesn't have Bet, doesn't have Bitachon. But if you have Bitachon, you do not have any Da'aga. You don't have any fear. You're in the hands of Hashem. Maybe that's what 75 alludes to. It's the 75 of Bitachon. Israel, betach ba Hashem. The pasuk in Tehillim says that's what we're all about. We keep saying Tehillim in Rosh Chodesh, in Ya'aleh V'Yavo. We said it throughout Sukkot, we're going to say it. In Pesach, we're going to say it. In Shavuot, we keep saying Israel. Betach ba Hashem. It's all about bitachon. Because when you have bitachon, you have no worries. You're in good hands. So it's been, again, a true pleasure, like every single time that I come here. It's a very, very special community. One of my favorites when I visit the States. You should only know Hatzlacha without lachatz. You should only know true bitachon without any da'aga, without needing to go to the question of Lama! Ma yeh? No need for us, no need. We are in the hands of Hashem at all times. I daven along with you that Emetz Hashem, our next shiur together is not going to be here. I like this place. But Emetz Hashem, our next shiur will be in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, B'meira B'yameinu. We will all be zochet to be there together. To join the pleasantry of seeing the Shekhinah in front of our eyes, together with Mashiach Tzidkenu Bekarov B'yameinu. Amen.